The last 24 hours for Ubisoft has been as bad as it gets for a AAA company, and at this point I do feel like they may be on borrowed time. I do think we are potentially looking at the absolute death of Ubisoft as we know it. Now, obviously, I don't think the company is going to completely go under, but I do think we might be looking at an acquisition either by a private equity firm or another company. And how much that is, it's going to be a lot less than what it would have been a couple of years ago. So as most of you have already heard by now, we talked briefly about it because it was just rumored at the time, but yesterday's video, Assassin's Creed Shadows to 2025, kind of felt like it was a foregone conclusion because of the fact that they canceled their Tokyo Game Show appearance, and then they also canceled all press previews, which is pretty much a sign to everybody that this game is getting delayed. Now, the game was supposed to be launching in the middle of November, about 6 or 7 weeks away, and they suddenly delayed it the day after Ghost of Yotei was announced, which is just hilarious timing, and also a couple of days before they were supposed to be in front of a Japanese audience presenting their game that's set in Japan. Just optically really bad look. But yes, we have this delay announcement. It's pretty much all the stuff you expect, but there are some very interesting admissions here, I think. We've made the decision to postpone the release date to February 14th, 2025, so the game is now going to be launching about 4 months later, around that, and February is just absolutely stacked. There's so much competition, and this is a risky move overall, moving from the prime time, the pristine, the most attractive holiday season to February of 2025. That's something that is very unappealing to a lot of investors, and why so many of them are absolutely pissed with how mismanaged Ubisoft has been with this game. The game will release on a broad range of platforms. This is the big thing. Ubisoft is again another company that is returning to Steam, and it will be there at launch, and you know it's going to be there. It's going to be that mostly negative rating no matter what. I just guarantee it's going to be happening, and you're going to see everybody talking about and laughing about it. Well, maybe not Ubisoft, but additionally, pre-orders will be refunded, and all future pre-orders will be granted the first expansion for free. This is a very interesting admission. I say that because, one, they had to cancel these pre-orders, probably for the deluxe edition that includes that early access, which you get to play the game about 3 or so days early, and they had to do that because of the fact that that early access is no longer there. The game is releasing day one on Steam. It's going to be releasing for everybody, and now if you obviously pre-order, you get a first expansion for free, which is just content that was pretty much cut from the base game likely. Now, what's interesting about this is the fact that they were so okay with refunding these pre-orders, it makes me believe that the rumors were true, that Assassin's Creed Shadows pre-orders were low, and they need this game to be a hit. They cannot afford this game to sell a couple million copies less than what the last couple of games have sold. And you gotta understand that this company is fueled by Assassin's Creed. Obviously, they have a couple of other franchises, Far Cry, Tom Clancy, but Assassin's Creed is that's their cake. And if this game sells a couple million, we could see this company truly just crumble to the ground, in which there is thousands of developers losing jobs. And I think people forget that Ubisoft is a massive company. They have like over 14,000 employees, and they've been barely holding on. And now, if they're big, pristine, the main franchise does not sell the way that they need it to, this company is just ruined. They are done. And it's not even just like they'll be sold off to like the highest bidder. It's most of the company will be gone. And I know a lot of people watching this is good. I don't want Ubisoft, but say what you will, every couple of years, there's an experience that I really do enjoy from Ubisoft, and they have a number of franchises that I want to see done right. And if Ubisoft were to be under, let's just say, the Meta flag or a private equity firm, I think it could get a lot worse for gamers in terms of the experiences that's being built. It is worth mentioning that, we did get response about Ghost of Yotei from Assassin's Creed CEO, the Guillemot family, Yves, I think that's his name. Assassin's Creed Shadows delay puts it in competition with Ghost of Yotei. We talked about that extensively in my last video yesterday. Check it out if you haven't. But Ubisoft's CEO says there's room for both. Of course, he has to say that, but the shadow is looming over Ubisoft with Ghost of Yotei's announcement. And people are going to be talking about this experience, and they're going to be comparing. And say what you will, but people will be comparing to Ghost of Tsushima, which came out a couple of years ago. And there's already an argument to be made that Ubisoft lost this feudal Japan window years ago because of Tsushima. That was the game that so many people were waiting for, and Sucker Punch Productions beat Ubisoft to the punch because Ubisoft just didn't have an interest in feudal Japan. They even did notorious interviews in which they said it was boring setting. They said there was already too many samurai games, and here they are finally doing it. It's years too late, and it's extremely controversial because of the protagonist decisions that they made with the game. Specifically, this is what Yves Guillemot, I'm not even sure how I'm saying that right, but this is what he said to investors. He says there's a lot of space for very high quality games, and those two games can sell very well. We'll see about that, but I definitely think that Ghost of Tsushima, Ghost of Yotei very much could hurt the potential of this game. And say what you will, but the fact that, you know, Sucker Punch beat them to the punch years ago, this could have been a lot bigger if they had done this setting years ago. We also did see, it's worth mentioning where Ubisoft stands right now and why it's so nightmarish, but Ubisoft Toronto, they've been working on the Splinter Cell remake. It remains in stealth mode. We have no gameplay footage, nothing to go off of, and it's just been quiet like a lot of the projects at Ubisoft. We also have The Division Heartland. This was canceled earlier this year. Cancellations, there's been a number of them the last couple of years with Ubisoft. Prince of Persia, we got that announcement over the summer in which a 2026 release date was given. This has been in a troubled state for so long, and we'll see what happens. Again, we have not seen any gameplay of this remake yet. We also have Beyond Good and Evil 2. I know everybody's forgotten about this project, but it's been in development hell for years. 15 years this game has been in development in some sort of... It's honestly mind-boggling that this has continued. I think it has a far longer development cycle than even Duke Nukem. It's really insane that they're continuing down this road, and I really do think that this is going to be one of those experiences that if it does ever release, it's going to disappoint. And then, say what you will, X-Defiant was supposed to be the Call of Duty competitor, and it's fallen on hard times as of late. And there was a recent report at the end of August saying that they had only about 20,000 concurrent players on all platforms, and for a major release like this, it needed to be far bigger, and the consistency has not been there, and there's been some rumors that this could be shutting down in the not-so-near future, and I believe it. We also have Skull and Bones. Remember that disastrous development that ultimately did release earlier this year, and it disappointed, having under 1 million players in its first week, less than, at the time, all other 2024 releases. Nobody's beating Concord. Nobody at all, with those 25,000 sales, which were later refunded. And then the big announcement that came today from Ubisoft was that Star Wars Outlaws did, in fact, underperform. Ubisoft CEO said that it had solid ratings. He hyped it up a little bit, but he said that their sales it was softer than expected, which aka just means that this game did not do they thought they were going to make a lot more money from this. And I think you got to remember there's licensing fees that are paid to Lucasfilm and Disney, so Ubisoft, they probably felt like they wasted their time on this project. The first so-called open world Star Wars game to date, it just wasn't the success that they thought it was going to be. And we'll see what actual figures are in the future. Hopefully we do get some from Ubisoft. I'm not so sure. Maybe it'll be leaked, but everything has indicated that this has just been another negative for this company that they cannot afford, because they were supposed to have two powerhouses this fall. It was going to be Star Wars Outlaws. You know, you're hoping that's going to sell millions upon millions of copies, and then you have your main franchise with Assassin's Creed Shadows, and that is no more. That's why investors are so extremely scared, and they're so unhappy with the management of this company. And those other games I just talked about, all the cancellations, all of the development hell, it really puts pressure on Ubisoft's management for how badly that they've been doing all of this, because there's no excuses, honestly. We also have this. This is an internal letter that was sent to Ubisoft staff by Yves Guillemot, and he talked about the company's struggles, and we'll start it off. He says, first, Star Wars Outlaws' initial sales proved softer than expected, despite solid ratings from players that recognize the game's faithful transcription of the original trilogy's essence and richness. It got a 76 on Metacritic. I don't know if you should be hyping up that score. It's a fine score, but you should be striving for far better. And Ubisoft even admitted, some of their directors saying that they thought they were going to get better scores. So I find it funny that he's hyping this up. 3.85 on PS Store, 4 out of 5 on Xbox, and 4.4 out of 5 on Epic. Don't want to talk about those Metacritic user scores, though. They don't. And they won't be talking about those Steam user reviews in the future with other releases that release on Steam Day 1, which is the new thing. While players praise the sense of detail and the beauty of the graphics, the effectiveness of the reputation system, and endearing characters like Nick, some also noted areas of improvement. Recognize they don't say anything actually about the gameplay or the story, some of the most important aspects of a single-player story-driven experience. He does continue, he says, in today's ultra-competitive market, players expect extraordinary experiences and ultra-polished games on day one. We need to continue to improve when it comes to fine-tuning our games and delivering outstanding gameplay. This is what will enable Ubisoft to again create the best games in the industry, I suppose. Consequently, we decided to delay Assassin's Creed Shadows to February 2025. The game is already playable and of high quality and has all the features the team wanted to integrate into the ambitious experience, which makes you wonder, why are they delaying it if they're saying it's so high quality, it's so absolutely amazing? And he says, the unusual decision at such an advanced stage is motivated by our desire to offer an optimal experience from launch on all platforms and various PC configurations, which means the game's not quite polished enough, and to remove the small frictions we typically use to address in post-launch title updates. We will use the extra time to complement the experience with a few high-impact secondary quests that will bring even more memorable moments. So I don't believe this at all. I think they looked at the issues with Star Wars Outlaws and realized those exact issues are about to follow with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Again, the gameplay, a lot of the elements in Star Wars Outlaws were just taken from Assassin's Creed, the last couple of games. It's not surprising that they're extremely worried now after seeing how Outlaws was received by gaming audiences, and you gotta understand the controversy surrounding this game. It has reached a point where it can absolutely affect this company and kill them. Like I said, they're right now on the verge of death, and you could argue that they're about to die, and all indication indicates it's coming. Moving the game from, again, the pristine holiday season to February 2025, in which it's a loaded month, that is as bad as it gets for a company like Ubisoft. But he does continue on, he says, and then this is the really surprising admission that he comes out with. He says, lastly, I'd like to address the recent polarized coverage around our creative choices. We are an entertainment company. As such, our objective is not to endorse any specific agenda. Our mission has always been to entertain players and enrich their lives with original and memorable experiences that resonate with a global audience. He also said something similar to investors, Yves. He went on to say in a note to investors, let me address some of the polarized comments around Ubisoft lately. I want to reaffirm that we are an entertainment-first company, very similar to what he just said a second ago. But he does say creating games for the broadest possible audience, and our goal is to not push any specific agenda. We remain committed to creating games for players and fans that everyone can enjoy. And ultimately, a lot of people don't believe that bullshit. A lot of people call bullshit on that statement. They maybe not necessarily the management group at Ubisoft feels that way, that they're not pushing an agenda, but a lot of the creative choices, decisions that they've made, say what you will, but they are right there in that culture war, which is extremely divisive, and a lot of people are protesting against that stuff as of late, and there are consequences to those actions, and I understand a lot of people, I try to give nuance to these situations, and I think people need to understand that how divided we are now as a society, especially in the gaming sphere with entertainment, these companies cannot escape that. They can say we're not pushing an agenda, but say what you will, but there is notable examples with the developers' creative choices they've made in these Far Cry, Assassin's Creed games and other experiences that are definitely politically, leaning one way. And it's been that way for years. This gaming industry just never really wanted to talk about or acknowledge that. But while all of that is as bad as it just gets so much worse as we have this insider gaming report saying Ubisoft's board is now launching an investigation into the company's struggles. Ubisoft's executive committee and board of directors will launch an investigation and review of the company. And all of this is because of this. This company in the last year has lost 65% of their stock price. They're at the lowest in the last 11, 12 years. This is really, they truly do feel like they're about to die. And this is, again, a reflection of that lowest share price in over a decade. And now the specific remarks about this announcement, but the board of directors are launching an investigation. I believe this is Guillaume, who says, in the light of recent challenges, we acknowledge the need for greater efficiency while delighting players. As a result, beyond the first important short-term actions undertaken, the executive committee, under the supervision of the board, is launching a review aimed at further improving our execution execution, notably in this player-centric approach and accelerating our strategic paths towards a higher performing model to the benefit of our stakeholders and shareholders. And then this is where he talks about the polarized comments that we already talked about a second ago, that they're not pushing any specific agenda. Make of that as you will. And what's interesting here is Tom Henderson of Insider Gaming, he has notably a lot of inside sources at Ubisoft, and he says right here, speaking with current and former Ubisoft employees, I am told that the move was inevitable and the writing was on the wall, as many Ubisoft studios have been struggling due to poor management. And one thing that you can't make with companies like Ubisoft or any AAA games company is talent. And I think that what has happened with Ubisoft with a lot of their best franchises is that a lot of that talent that fueled those franchises are long gone. And what you have is now kind of imposters, playing these new roles, and what they've been producing is a lot of slop, and I think a lot of people are just exhausted and tired of the slop. And this is why earlier on I kind of brought up the acquisition part of this, because investors say that they're ready, they want to sell this company, they're done with it. Ubisoft investors say it has support of 10% of shareholders for sale. An investor in Ubisoft is claiming that it has 10% of shareholders. First reported by Reuters, AJ Investments, that same one that revolted against the company a couple weeks ago, says that it's building support for a sale of the company and potentially a change in leadership. We call on the management of Ubisoft to allow the sale of the company to third parties or private equity firms at a fair price. Like I said, these investors do not care. They just want to make as much money as possible. That's why I said, with Ubisoft, things could get so much worse with their franchises and the games that they're producing. The private equity firm at a fair price, the firm which owns less than 1% of the company, said in a letter shared with Reuters, but apparently they have about 10% of support so far. The firm didn't name any of the investors it claimed to have the support of. They also declined to provide that information to Reuters. AJ Investments first made calls for a sale and change of executive leadership, as I mentioned, in early September. At the time, they said they believe the company is mismanaged, while Ubisoft shareholders were hostages of the Guillemot family members and Tencent, who take advantage of them. Management is focused on pleasing investors with beating quarterly results and not focusing on long-term strategy to provide exceptional experiences for the gamers. Our company has extensive knowledge about the gaming industry, and we were long-term shareholders in Activision Blizzard, and we started our Ubisoft position a couple weeks ago and still adding to it. And that is one of the investors that is right now revolting against this company. And this is the landscape that we live in. Private equity firms, that is likely who's going to be picking up Ubisoft. Ubisoft was already floating the idea of being acquired by other companies back in 2023, and they were laughed at by other companies. And I think the problem is that Microsoft really can't afford, or because of how they purchased Activision Blizzard, it'd be very difficult for them to go about acquiring Ubisoft, and a lot of the other AAA companies just aren't interested in the baggage that is Ubisoft. A lot of people have floated the idea maybe Amazon or Meta, but Meta has shown that they really can't be trusted, Amazon as well, and then you just get a bunch of private equity firms. So, as reported by insider Jeff Grubb, proposals from Ubisoft for potential acquisition or merger with other similar companies were reportedly laughed at. And then he continues to mention the fact that in 2022, Ubisoft CEO did say that the publisher would consider offers for a possible Ubisoft acquisition. And Jeff Grubb reported at the time in 2023, Ubisoft definitely already did the rounds proposing acquisitions and mergers with other similar companies, and it mostly got laughed at. It's just too unwieldy. Its strength was its distributed development structure, and now that is an albatross. While he hopes that Ubisoft decides to tough it out and instead of laying off employees, which we're already seeing some of these layoffs this year, he believes that the publisher's future is grim either way, and it's gotten far more grim in recent days. In fact, he believes that everything is on the table for potential downscaling, and I think that's the scare with Ubisoft right now, besides the acquisition. I think that if these sales continue to crumble, like we all unfortunately do believe is going to happen, they're going to start cutting many of those developers from the 14,000 that they have and the many studios that they have across the world. As it is said here, well over 40 studios and subsidiaries around the world. Now, besides the games that we talked about earlier on in this video, such as Assassin's Creed Shadows, Beyond Good and Evil 2, the Prince of Persia remake, and Splinter Cell remake, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege is their main success story right now. It's their ongoing success story, and it's still flourishing to this day. And there is a mobile experience on the way, but another one of those projects that has been delayed. Same thing with another, I think it's another mobile experience, The Division Resurgence. So many things being pushed back and such with Ubisoft. We obviously also got recently some leaked details about the multiplayer Assassin's Creed project Invictus. Apparently it's going to be Fall Guys inspired. Well, it's going to support 16 players. I guess when it says Fall Guys, it's just going to have multiple rounds with different things that you're doing, you know, with the main goal of you winning, I guess, coming to the top. So it'll be interesting how that works. There's also Assassin's Creed Hex, which sounds like a very different spin on the Assassin's Creed franchise. It's survival horror, so it's not going to be like the open world games that we've had the last number of years. We also obviously have Assassin's Creed Jade, another mobile experience from Ubisoft. This one, another one that has been delayed to 2025. Unclear what's going on with that project. And then there's Far Cry 7. Ubisoft faced a lot of criticism of the direction that they were taking with the franchise. A lot of people exhausted by the formula, and they are trying to shake things up. The leaked details here were very different than what we've heard with in the past. And this is Tom Henderson, his report saying that it's understood that the next entry of the series will be a non-linear story, with the story being centered around rescuing the player's kidnapped family. It was said the game's plot revolves around a wealthy family that has been kidnapped by a conspiracy group currently called the Sons of Truth. And while exact details aren't known, the campaign is for the players to rescue their entire family within a specific time frame. Currently, the current in-game timer stands at 72 hours or 24 hours in real time. But like I said, very interesting spin on the franchise. I don't know if it's going to produce the sales that Ubisoft needs, though. And then obviously the big thing that was announced a while ago was Tom Clancy's The Division 3. But again, who knows how many years away this project and even Far Cry 7 is at this point. Now, will all of these games change the fortunes for Ubisoft the next couple of years? I don't really think so, honestly. If anything, it does feel like a little bit more of the same, just with a bunch of development hell with all of these projects. Unfortunately, I think things really we're on death's door with Ubisoft. I think they are very much about to collapse, and if Assassin's Creed Shadows isn't the hit game that they need it to be, and I don't think it will be, I do think that we could be hearing a lot more conversation next year about this company finally being sold, and maybe that's actually what ends up happening. Anyway, Ubisoft is crumbling to the ground. It is a bit sad, but also not necessarily surprising with the last couple of years with so much development hell with all of their franchises, piss poor management, questionable design choices and decisions, and that is what this company is right now. Anyway, what do you make of Ubisoft's downfall? Let me know down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.